Over the past 10 to 15 years, China has carried out one of the fastest infrastructure build-outs in modern history, not just in one sector, but across nearly all of them. Between 2011 and 2013, China used more cement than the United States did during the entire 20th century. That single fact captures the intensity of China's infrastructure drive, a national effort that transformed the country in just one generation. And when you look at projects on this scale, it really comes down to one thing: how much knowledge, planning, and trial and error it takes for societies to even reach a point where they can build like this. That's actually why I want to quickly mention something that connects directly to this idea. This is the book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization, and it's not a normal history book. It's more like a visual encyclopedia of how humans figured out everything from tools and machines to architecture, energy, and communication. What surprised me most is the design. The illustrations mix technical engineering drawings with medieval-style art, and it's printed on thick matte art paper with a laminated hardcover. It feels more like a collector's piece than something you just leave on a shelf. It also covers over 180 topics across 23 chapters, and there's even a hidden quest inside the book, basically a puzzle woven into the pages that you only notice if you're really paying attention, which makes flipping through it way more fun than I expected. What I really like about it is that it doesn't just list inventions. It shows how different systems depend on each other, and it explains them using detailed diagrams and illustrations instead of long technical explanations. This project actually raised over $2 million on Kickstarter and became a bestseller in 2023, which makes sense once you see how much work went into it. If you want to check it out, you'll find the link in the description, and you can use the promo code CivilMentors10 for a 10% discount. Now, when we talk about modern countries building at massive scale, China is probably the clearest real-world example of what happens when those systems come together in real life. In the early 2000s, China had no true high-speed rail. Today, it has more than the rest of the world combined. Over 50,000 kilometers of high-speed track now crisscross the country. Trains run up to 350 kilometers per hour, connecting nearly every major city. In some regions, they've replaced air travel entirely. But the most striking part is not just how much track was built, it's how fast it happened. Take the Beijing to Shanghai high-speed rail line. It's 1,318 kilometers long. Construction began in 2008. The first trains were running by mid-2011. That's 3 years from start to finish. Trains on this line now carry over 100 million passengers every year. Now compare that to California's high-speed rail project. It was approved the same year, 2008. It covers a distance of around 837 kilometers between San Francisco and Los Angeles. But after more than 15 years, construction is still underway, and the budget has ballooned to over $100 billion. In the UK, the HS2 project connecting London to Birmingham, just over 200 kilometers, has been under construction for years and is now partly scaled back due to rising costs. According to the World Bank, China's high-speed lines cost between $17 to $21 million per kilometer. That's significantly lower than similar lines in Europe or the US, where costs can exceed $50 million per kilometer. Now let's move on to city metro systems. In 2000, only a few Chinese cities had subway systems. Today, more than 50 cities operate full-scale metro systems, and they're not small. As of now, China has over 11,000 kilometers of urban rail in operation, more than any other country by a wide margin. Beijing's subway has grown into the largest in the world, nearly 880 kilometers of track, over 430 stations. Shanghai is not far behind. Shenzhen, Chengdu, Guangzhou all have systems larger than New York or London. But again, the story is not just the size, it's the pace. Chengdu had no metro before 2010. By 2024, it had over a dozen lines. Shenzhen's metro system has gone from 0 to over 500 kilometers in about 20 years. These are full-scale underground networks, not trams or surface light rail. Cities that most people outside China have never heard of, places like Suzhou, Zhengzhou, or Hefei, now have larger metro systems than Chicago or Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, subway expansion in many Western cities has been painfully slow. Take New York's 2nd Avenue subway, Phase 1, 3 stations, barely 2 kilometers of track, and a decade of construction, at a staggering $4.5 billion. In the same amount of time, a Chinese city like Nanjing might add 50 new stations and 3 new lines. Now, let's talk about the modern expressways. In the late 1980s, China had virtually no modern expressways. The first one opened in 1988, and it was just 18 kilometers long. Fast forward to today, and China has the largest highway network in the world, over 190,000 kilometers of expressway. That's more than double the entire US interstate system, which took over 60 years to build. Between 2010 and 2020 alone, China added about 85,000 kilometers of expressways. To put that into perspective, that's more than what the US built during the entire original interstate construction era. And this was not limited to flat, easy terrain. Expressways were extended into mountainous regions, deserts, and even high-altitude plateaus. The G30 Expressway runs nearly 4,400 kilometers from Shanghai to the border with Kazakhstan. The G45 cuts vertically from Daqing in the northeast to Guangzhou in the south, over 3,500 kilometers. But highway projects were not just about length, they also required engineering on an entirely different scale. To make these connections possible, China also built hundreds of large bridges. Some of them are now global record holders. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge is 55 kilometers long, part bridge, part undersea tunnel. It links 3 major cities across the Pearl River Delta and took only 9 years to complete. A project of similar scope in many countries would take twice that long if it cleared approvals at all. In Guizhou Province, one of the most mountainous areas of China, engineers built some of the world's tallest bridges. The Beipanjiang Bridge, completed in 2016, spans a canyon 565 meters above the river below. That's taller than the Empire State Building, and it was completed in just 3 years. Guizhou alone now has dozens of super bridges. Now, compare this to the US, where new highway projects often take a decade or more, even for basic widening. Environmental reviews, land acquisition, and permitting processes can stretch timelines before construction even begins. China's highway network now reaches nearly every county in the country. Over 99% of cities with more than 200,000 people are connected by expressway. That kind of coverage didn't exist 15 years ago. Today, it's part of daily life. Now, let's move on from roads to runways and look at how China built dozens of new airports while many countries struggled to build even one. Between 2010 and 2020, China opened more than 60 new civil airports. That's an average of about 1 every 2 months. By the end of that decade, the total number of civil transport airports reached 241, and the plan doesn't stop there. China is aiming for around 450 by 2035. Compare that to the United States. The last major hub airport built from scratch there was Denver International, opened in 1995. Since then, most airport projects in the US have focused on renovations or runway extensions, not entirely new airports. In China, major cities now operate 2 or even 3 large airports. Smaller cities that previously had no air service now have modern terminals and direct flights to the country's economic centers. Beijing's Daxing International Airport opened in 2019. It was built in less than 5 years. Designed to handle over 100 million passengers annually, it's one of the largest and most advanced airports in the world. The terminal, designed by Zaha Hadid, has high-speed rail connections underneath and fully automated check-in systems above. Then there's Chengdu Tianfu International, which opened in 2021. That project too went from planning to operation in about 5 years. Even in remote areas like Tibet, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, China has built high-altitude airports with challenging logistics. Daocheng Yading Airport in Sichuan sits at over 4,400 meters above sea level. It's one of the highest airports in the world and still opened on schedule. Now let's move on to ports. China now operates 7 of the world's 10 busiest container ports. Shanghai alone has held the #1 spot for over a decade. In 2024, it handled more than 49 million containers. That's more than double the combined volume of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the 2 busiest ports in the United States. But it's not just Shanghai. Ningbo Zhoushan, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Qingdao, Tianjin. Each of these ports moves over 20 million TEUs a year, and they've all expanded rapidly over the past 10 to 15 years. Port infrastructure has kept pace with global shipping trends as vessels have grown larger, some carrying over 20,000 containers. Chinese ports deepened their harbors, expanded berths, and built the road and rail links needed to handle the flow of goods inland. Ningbo Zhoushan, for example, is now the busiest port in the world by overall cargo tonnage, not just containers, but also raw materials, oil, coal, and more, and it continues to add capacity. Where it can take years to get approvals for a new terminal elsewhere, China routinely completes port expansions in 2 to 3 years. China's infrastructure story doesn't stop at transportation. It also includes one of the largest and fastest expansions of energy systems ever seen. Let's start with generation. In 2021, China completed the Baihetan Dam. With a total capacity of 16 gigawatts, it's now the second largest hydropower station in the world, right after another Chinese project, the Three Gorges Dam. Construction on Baihetan's main structure began in 2017, and it took just 4 years to finish. Each of its 16 turbines generates 1 gigawatt, more than most nuclear reactors, and it wasn't the only project of its kind. Wudongde Dam, also in southwest China, was completed around the same time with over 10 gigawatts of capacity. These dams are massive, but so is the grid that connects them. China's power transmission network includes something no other country has developed at the same scale: ultra-high voltage lines. These are electric highways capable of sending huge amounts of power across thousands of kilometers with minimal loss. As of 2025, China has built over 40,000 kilometers of ultra-high voltage transmission lines. That's enough to circle the planet. Some of these lines can carry 12 gigawatts of electricity from western provinces like Xinjiang or Sichuan all the way to the eastern coast. That's the equivalent of powering entire regions from clean energy sources located thousands of kilometers away. No other country has a comparable system. In the US, building even one high-capacity transmission line across state borders can take over a decade due to regulatory barriers. Europe faces similar challenges, and while these long-distance lines connect dams and coal plants, they're also supporting a rapid shift toward renewables. China now installs more solar panels and wind turbines each year than any other country. In fact, in 2023, it added more solar power than the entire existing solar capacity of the US. By 2025, China is on track to reach its 2030 clean energy target 5 years early. That includes over 1,200 gigawatts of solar and wind power combined. The build-out is not limited to generation. China also leads in grid-scale battery storage, smart grid technology, and electric vehicle infrastructure. It's already home to the world's largest EV charging network, and about 1 in every 3 new cars sold there is electric. And while the pace of renewable expansion is impressive, China has also kept its power system stable, despite rising demand. Outages have become less common, and access to electricity is nearly universal. What sets China apart here isn't just ambition, it's execution. Projects move from approval to operation in a fraction of the time compared to most other countries. That speed has helped China handle both economic growth and its transition toward cleaner energy, without waiting for perfect conditions. But China didn't just build roads, bridges, and power lines, it built entire cities with digital infrastructure baked in from the beginning. By 2020, more than 500 cities across China were designated as smart city pilots. That includes megacities like Shanghai and Shenzhen, but also mid-sized cities like Hangzhou and Suzhou. These projects integrate data systems, sensors, and automation into daily city management. In Hangzhou, the city runs on a system called City Brain. Developed with Alibaba, it monitors traffic flow through thousands of cameras, adjusts lights in real time, and gives ambulances faster routes. In pilot zones, it reduced traffic congestion by up to 15%. In Shanghai, city services are fully digitized. You can report a broken streetlight, pay a utility bill, and check subway wait times through one integrated app. Local governments pull data from sensors, mobile payments, and social services to adjust how the city runs, day by day, sometimes hour by hour. Facial recognition is widely used, not just for security, but also for payments and transit. In some cities, you can board the subway by walking through a scanner. No ticket, no card, just a face match. Streetlights double as Wi-Fi hubs. Bus stops display live data. Some neighborhoods have smart waste bins that send alerts when full. And while other countries are still running pilot projects, China built this at scale. Cities like Shenzhen rolled out these systems across entire districts, not just test zones. It goes beyond retrofitting existing cities. Xiong'an, a new urban area south of Beijing, is being built almost entirely from scratch. It's designed as a digital-first city, underground infrastructure for logistics, integrated high-speed rail, smart energy grids, and real-time traffic management all built into the original blueprint. However, it's one thing to build quickly, it's another to do it over and over again, across every major sector for more than a decade. So how does China pull this off? They start with planning. China doesn't leave infrastructure to chance. Every 5 years, the central government releases a new plan, and infrastructure is always at the center of it. These plans set national targets. How many kilometers of rail to build, which cities need metro systems, where new airports should go, and how power should be distributed. And unlike in many countries, these aren't just suggestions, they're followed. The National Development and Reform Commission, or NDRC, acts as the central planner. It reviews proposals, signs off on funding, and ensures that highways, railways, and ports actually connect in a logical network. That top-down structure speeds things up. It reduces overlap and makes sure the right projects get priority. Then there's financing. China puts a larger share of its GDP into infrastructure than almost any other major economy. In boom years, over 40% of GDP went into capital formation, a lot of it into roads, bridges, and trains. Execution is handled by state-owned enterprises. These companies, like China Railway Group or China Communications Construction, don't just build one project at a time. They work on dozens simultaneously, across provinces and even across continents. They have scale, tens of thousands of workers, in-house equipment, and dedicated supply chains. That means they can build fast and at lower cost. When high-speed rail needed precast bridge segments, they built entire factories next to the route. When airports had to open by a national deadline, they worked 24-hour shifts. In many cases, different teams within these companies compete on the same project. One section of a railway might be built by one company, the next by a rival. That keeps things moving. One reason this all works is political alignment. Local officials in China are often evaluated on visible results: GDP growth, infrastructure delivery, and improvements to local living standards. That creates strong incentives to get things built. And land acquisition, a common roadblock elsewhere, moves quickly in China. The state owns all urban land and has authority to rezone and reassign it. While this raises serious questions about relocation and fairness, it also means projects rarely stall for years due to legal battles. Finally, China is comfortable with building ahead of demand. The idea is simple. It's better to have an airport ready before a city grows than to scramble after it's overcrowded. That sometimes leads to underused infrastructure in the short term, but the government considers it part of long-term planning. All of these factors, the planning, the financing, the speed, the scale, combine to create a system where mega projects move from blueprint to operation in a fraction of the time it takes elsewhere. In just one generation, China built an infrastructure network that reshaped how 1.4 billion people live, work, and move. It connected remote towns to global markets. It gave cities the capacity to absorb hundreds of millions. It built roads, rails, bridges, airports, and power systems at a speed no one else has matched. That legacy is visible in the numbers, but also in daily life. A farmer in Sichuan can now get crops to market overnight. A student in Guizhou can take a fast train to a university hundreds of kilometers away. A factory in inland China can ship goods to Europe through modern ports and rail lines. Entire regions that once felt left behind are now part of a connected economy. But the lesson here isn't just build fast. It's about coordination, long-term planning, systems that link together. It's about aligning infrastructure with future demand, not just present need. And it's about learning from both success and mistakes. Not every project has paid off. But for now, one thing is clear. No nation in history has built this much, this fast for this many people. So what do you think? Should other countries build like this? Or would this model fall apart outside of China? And if your country had the resources, would you want it to? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.